Monday. This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin. Little b for the currency and Bitcoin, big B for the network, a collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. And I'm your host, Christine Lee. Looking at our top stories of the day, Bitcoin stabilizing after a weekend sell-off sent jitters throughout the crypto markets, fueled by a combination of profit-taking, automated trades, and FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The crypto futures market saw the highest number of liquidations in history on Sunday after exchanges liquidated $10 billion worth of positions. 90% of those liquidations were due to forced closure of long positions or bullish trades, represented by that last green column over there, which shows the leverage was excessively skewed bullish across the board. And what could have triggered this flash crash? Well, analysts pin blackouts caused by a coal plant explosion in China's Xinjiang region for knocking out one of the biggest Bitcoin mining hubs in the world, cutting about 40% of Bitcoin's global hash rate, which is the computational power used to process transactions on the Bitcoin network. This should only cause minor, if any, delays for Bitcoin transactions in the next couple of weeks. And in a rare show of support for cryptocurrencies, Li Bo, a deputy governor of the People's Bank of China, reportedly singled out Bitcoin and stablecoins as feasible investment options, though not currencies in of it themselves. And checking in on Bitcoin, the XPX Bitcoin price right now trading just under $56,000. Bitcoin has been trading pretty flat over the past 24 hours. According to trade block data, the XPX has been the most reliable Bitcoin reference price for institutions since 2014, with billions in assets under management benchmarked against it.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
All right, the nearly 15% drop in Bitcoin over the weekend triggered oversold readings on intraday charts. Buyers were able to maintain short-term support around $55,000, although there is strong resistance around the $59,000 area there. Bitcoin's April 13th breakout above 60,000 and subsequent all-time high above 64,000, though, failed. Slowing upside momentum on daily and weekly chart indicates continued profit-taking on rallies. The relative strength index on the bottom of the chart there is now oversold on the 4-hour chart, which typically leads to price recoveries. And joining us now to discuss is BitBull Capital's CEO, Joe DiPasquale. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you on. So I'd love to hear your insights into how you believe what caused this flash crash over the weekend.
Absolutely. Well, I thought you said it extraordinarily well. As you mentioned, the blackouts caused by the coal mine had this, chain effect of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So as well, we saw a whale try to sell about $500 million of Bitcoin when that power place went out. And so that caused fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And then we'd also had seen some other news going into the weekend, such as, you of course mentioned China, on the other hand, Turkey, making it harder for its residents and citizens to use Bitcoin for payments, and other things that just caused some FUD in the market. And of course, Bitcoin has still a relatively thin order book if you look at it versus traditional asset classes.
Yeah, you mentioned that Turkey banning crypto payments. We also heard speculation that the U.S. Treasury may take action against money laundering using digital currencies, according to Bloomberg. But I wonder, do you think that a correction is due?
Well, Bitcoin has gone up hundreds of percent already this year. But one thing I saw on your chart that I thought was interesting was this you had labeled something a failed breakout. I do think that Bitcoin hitting an all-time high last week above 64K is not a failed breakout, actually. I would say that that's a successful breakout to a new all-time high. So while we should all remember that Bitcoin is extraordinarily volatile, I like to tell people when they ask, what should I do? What does the future hold? That time in the market is going to do better for you than timing the market. So for me, yes, I do see when I look at wallet dynamics of people who have bought and held for a while versus new incoming purchasers, and also things like Morgan Stanley allowing, for example, its private wealth management clients to buy into Bitcoin funds and other on-ramps to this asset class. I'm very bullish. and the BitBull Capital fund is bullish and long on Bitcoin and other alternative assets in the crypto space as well.
I wonder, is it worrisome to you that blackouts in China could have such an impact on Bitcoin's price?
It's the volatility. This depends on your own strategy in crypto. So we should not expect crypto to lose its unique characteristic of volatility. If you look at the volatility of crypto and Bitcoin, even specifically against other assets, it's extraordinarily volatile. So that you can either look at that as creating an opportunity or creating concern. I think if you're willing to be active in the market, it's an opportunity. And if you have weak hands or are trading with too much leverage, as we saw from many retail users on sites like Binance, where they default to 20x leverage, which makes no sense, especially as compared to Morgan Stanley allowing their clients to put 2.5% of their assets in crypto. You just have to be careful with this asset class.
You mentioned the volatility. Over the weekends especially, weekends are very thinly traded and can cause big price swings even if a large trade is made. So what kind of advice would you give to investors looking into the weekend and seeing that price volatility?
So as you mentioned, there's a lot of support around this 51, 52K. And right now, of course, in the last couple of hours, we saw Bitcoin take a breath and go down to about 53.5, and now it's up at 55.5. So I do see these points as buy points. This is not the case where the fundamentals of Bitcoin are weak. This is a case where the fundamentals of Bitcoin, especially in the case of continued U.S. stimulus and printing fiat money, are strong, where new potential purchasers are still coming on board, including large purchasers and institutional purchasers. So I'm very bullish, and I see this as an accumulation point.
All right. So what is your outlook for the next 3 months and then end of year?
For the next 3 months, the BitBull Capital price target is 75K for Bitcoin. And our own price target would be that it might cap out. Just looking at various dynamics, we have a number of quantitative factors we look into. So I think for the year, around 90K is where I start to get really wanting to deep dive on additional quantitative metrics to see if it can hold out. But we'll need to look at the macroeconomic climate at that point as well.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you're looking at for the week? Are things oversold right now? What is your advice for looking into this week?
Things are oversold, which is a great and strong point. But I think the talk last week was all about how will Coinbase's direct listing affect crypto prices? And that's something that led into the FUD, of course, as well, with the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, selling some of his shares. And so what I'm really interested to see now that, for example, ARK funds are adding Coinbase equity and other things, how does this how will the listing of such a direct hit into crypto assets affect the price, and what will be the correlation between those? I think that I use that institutional metric as a harbinger to see what might happen with crypto as well. All
right, great. Joe, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate your time and your insights.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that was BitBull Capital CEO Joe DiPasquale. Coming up, the latest Bitcoin ETF to receive approval. Welcome back. Canada's fourth Bitcoin ETF from crypto firms 3iQ and CoinShares begins trading on the Toronto Stock Exchange today. U.S. regulators, meanwhile, have yet to approve a Bitcoin ETF after years of rejected applications. Our next guest is from the first firm to get a Bitcoin ETF approved in Canada, which has since surpassed $1 billion of assets under management. They also have an Ethereum ETF that is one of 3 Canada has approved that will begin trading tomorrow. Joining us now to discuss is Purpose Investments Chief Investment Officer Greg Taylor. Welcome, Greg.
Great, thank you.
Great. Congratulations on the latest Ethereum ETF approval and surpassing $1 billion of AUM for the Bitcoin ETF. Clearly, you had first mover advantage. So other 2 Bitcoin ETFs have about 100 million in AUM in Canada. Canada has a population of about 38 million. So where is this demand coming from? Do you see it more domestic or is it international, and particularly coming from the US?
Well, thank you. And given it's an ETF, it's always hard to track exactly where the demand's coming from. But from the amount of calls we've gotten and different meetings we've had, it's been broad-based demand from not just in Canada, but around the world. We've had talks with a lot of US investors and firms that are asking questions about the product. And certainly it's also split between retail and institutional investors. As we all know, there's been a lot of pent-up demand from institutions of trying to figure out how to put exposure to cryptocurrencies in their portfolios. And an ETF is the perfect wrapper to do so. So the fact we were out and we were first, I think, caught a lot of attention and has brought demand from around the world and both retail and institutions.
How important was that first mover advantage?
Well, I think it was important to be first, but I think it was also really interesting to hear the comments of a lot of people watched our first few days trading, because certainly an ETF is a good format for a lot of commodities. We've seen in the last few years how it's worked for gold and other commodities such as oil. And I think a lot of people were wondering just how we could do it in the crypto world. Would we be able to provide liquidity? Would we be able to meet the demand? And would we be able to make sure that the ETF traded really close to NAV and there wasn't a big premium or discount? And after we traded for a few days, we got a lot of calls from different investors saying they were very impressed with how the product acted, and then they would start to allocate towards it. So I think it was a combination of being first, but also making sure that we had everything lined up from a trading point of view, that there weren't any glitches from the start, and it was able to act as a product that for people that wanted to have exposure to Bitcoin through the simple product of an ETF, which allows you to buy and sell throughout the day on an exchange. And I think we were able to meet a lot of those demands, and that's where we're getting a lot of the support by getting a lot of inflows in the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm. I see here we have the assets under management versus the net asset value at Purpose. You can see it's been a very impressive run. I wonder if you see, with this 4th ETF coming out from CoinShares and i3Q, whether or not there will be a race to the bottom in terms of fees. We know that, CI Galaxy is offering more competitive fees. Will Purpose recalibrate what their fee structure is?
Well, I don't think we have to right yet. It is going to be more complicated to run a crypto ETF, and that's what we're doing. And we think we're fairly priced right now with our 1% management fee. The fund's had a lot of demand, and as you see in the chart here, that we've actually had a string of a positive inflow of creations every day since we launched. And I think that's some more of a recognition that the product's working to the expectations that investors want, and it's proving to deliver exactly what people want for exposure to Bitcoin in a trading as an ETF. There's a lot of talk around the fee compression. Certainly the management fee is one component, but there's a lot of other components from custody and fund management that all happen and build into what's called an MER, which is the management expense ratio for every fund. And I think that's the more important metric that investors should look at when they're looking at these different products. So while our MER at 1% is in line or a little higher than some of the other fees, the total MER is a lot less. And that's because we want to have diversification of scale. And with our Bitcoin ETF now over 1.4 billion Canadian dollars, and then when we launch the Ethereum ETF tomorrow, that'll all be commingled from a fund management fee. So we should be able to have a very competitive MER, management expense ratio, across our entire suite of crypto assets.
Why do you think Canada was able to approve these ETFs and not the United States?
Well, it's been great to work with the Canadian regulators, and they've been very open to providing novel products. Canada's been well known as the country that launched the first ETF in equities, in fixed income, and other products. So I think it's, again, just carrying on that tradition that we were able to, as a country, launch the first crypto Bitcoin ETF, and now tomorrow the first Ethereum ETF. Mm-hmm. So it's really just carrying on that history of getting the regulators and that are able to understand the product and work with us to make sure we're able to meet their demands and come up with a product that works for them.
Are you considering other coins now?
Well, we'll see. That's a great question. We want to see what the demand is for the Ethereum ETF tomorrow, and then we'll probably address that after that.
Any top coins on your radar?
Well, not yet.
Tell me
Everyone's
Doge.
asking
No.
No, I'm not sure we're quite there yet for that type of coin, but there's certainly going to be a lot of building out the whole crypto asset mix, whether it's active funds, whether it's a fund of funds, and those are all things we're looking at, but we haven't made any decisions yet.
Great. Gregory, thank you so much for the update, and good luck on the Ethereum ETF launch tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
All right, that was Purpose Investments Chief Investment Officer Greg Taylor, and that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in New York for First Mover, your first look at the day's global crypto news headlines. You're watching CoinDesk TV.